Welcome to the Urban GardenHER YouTube channel. My name is Alexis and I am the Urban GardenHER. And I guess I'm long overdue in expressing Happy New Year to you all, as this is my first video long form of the garden in 2025. A lot's been happening outside the garden, inside the garden, but I wanted to give you guys just an overview of the different things that you can start doing in preparation for your garden in February, as a lot of gardeners are doing a lot right now in prep for their spring gardens, as right now it's cold. Today is probably in a low of 20s. It's been very cold. Our weather is, let's see, this season we have been, it's funny because last season we were unseasonably warm, but this season we have been unseasonably cold and have been having a lot of snow, which actually is a good thing for our garden, which I actually welcome because I know it's going to kill some of them old pests from last year that tormented our garden. But right now, what's happening in the garden outdoors, I have been able to go out there and just take a peek every once in a while just to see what's going on and just to get a, sense of familiarity again, because, it's so cold outside. I haven't been out as frequent, but our garden basically is in a, I guess I want to call it a sleep mode, because it's not sleeping. It's just kind of quiet, just chilling right now. The brassicas are just, that I planted in the fall, are still there. They're still alive, although they look like they're not alive. And they just got a little bit of frost damage. We had some snow, like I said. So some of those plants look like the leaves have, just been damaged from the freezes that we've had. But there is some life still in those brassicas. And that's what, overwintering of plants is. You plant them in the fall and then you harvest them again in the springtime after they have overwintered over the season. And of course, I have not covered any of my plants. So this is just how they look, even with the elements, which is not terrible. In addition to my brassicas, I also have my herbs, my perennial herbs that are out there, my perennial flowers that are out there that are native plants, like my black-eyed Susan, my echinacea plant. I also have my raspberry bush and blackberry bush, and actually all my berry bushes, blueberry bushes, and my fig trees that have all, and my apple tree. I forget about the apple tree. But everything is just in a state of dormancy right now, as it looks like it's dead. The leaves, see the twigs, there's no leaves on them, but they are still alive, and they'll probably start to sprout or just have more leaves come in the springtime and produce again. But everything out there is just sleeping. And as everything is out there sleeping, I did plant out some bulbs in the fall as well, some spring bulbs. So those are starting to kind of wake up a little bit. Your spring bulbs usually come, at least in zone 7, they usually start to sprout around late February, early March. So I'm probably going to see some more of those come up. But what's happening indoors? What can you do as this garden is asleep outdoors in a state of dormancy? What can you do indoors while you're prepping for your garden? And so I'm going to go over the different things in my list of the different things you can do inside while you're waiting that will prepare your garden for the upcoming season, so you can grow food for most of the spring, summer, fall, and some of winter. So let's get started. So the first one up is we have our herbs. Now, this is the first year, y'all, that I have actually been able to sow all the seeds for my herbs this year. And if I didn't sow them, I propagated them. But let me go through the list. So I have a lot of perennial herbs that are in the garden right now as well, but I also wanted to start some more because I plan to build out a medicinal garden next year, which are mostly perennial herbs. So perennial plants being plants that grow year round, and they can survive a frost. Those herbs that I have started, I started them back in January. And although this is a sowing, which you can start right now, you can start these right now as well, because I started these in January 5th, on January 5th, and literally about a month later, this is what I have. Like, they're pretty much mature almost. And so it took this long for them to get to this size. And so this is what you can actually start right now in February, is some herbs. You can start your perennial herbs like sage, mint. What else am I forgetting? All the other perennial herbs down the list that you can think of. You can also start your cool weather annual herbs like cilantro, parsley, what else? Lemongrass as well. Those, although the lemongrass is not a cool weather herb, but you can start the cool weather herbs like parsley, cilantro right now, because what you can do with these herbs, along with your perennial herbs, is you can put them, when they get to a size, you can put them outdoors because they're perennial, so they can survive the cool, low temperatures outdoors just fine. I actually put mine in an unheated greenhouse, my little plastic greenhouse, and they've been out there for the past 5 days in extremely cold temperatures, and we're actually about to get some more snow, and they're just fine. So again, start your herbs right now. It doesn't take as long. I know some people are kind of like, you know, herbs take so long, which is why you usually get the starter plants from the grocery store or the nurseries, but try your herb seeds out. Like, they're not that bad to grow. You can grow them indoors and get a nice little size plant for a cheaper cost than if you were to purchase a seedling. So think about that. The next thing that you can plant is your cold weather vegetables outdoors. So I started again, this is a February start, and you can start it anywhere from January, February, and even some parts of March, depending what your the grow zone is. But I started, and what you can start right now in February is your cool weather vegetables. So like your brassicas, your brassicas being like your leafy greens, collards, kale, broccoli, cabbage, what else am I forgetting? Those vegetables you can start now. You can start chard, arugula, lettuce. These are not brassicas, but those are cool weather vegetables that you can start indoors right now so that you can harvest them around May. I want to say, well, maybe a little earlier than May, but you can start putting them in the ground at least before the last frost in your zone. So start your cool weather vegetables, your brassicas. In addition to your brassicas, you can also start your onion seeds. So I actually prefer growing onions from seed. I have a short video, if you haven't checked it out yet, where I walk you through how to grow your onions from seed. So you can start your onions indoors right now as well. Again, all of my stuff I started in January because I just wanted to get a head start, but you still have time to start all these different herbs and vegetables indoors as well and prep for your spring and summer gardens. So your brassicas, your onions, and what else? Beets. Now, this is a little controversial one. I started my beets indoors this year, y'all. And the reason why I did it is because, one, I like to experiment. But two, I have not had success in getting my beets to germinate outside successfully or timing them right. So I'm starting them indoors just to see, like, if I can time the process, like, you know, in a way to where that they actually germinate and grow to a mature size that we can harvest. So the thing that's tricky about beets is that they are, what do you say? They are a bit, I don't want to say that they're like finicky, but they can be a little tricky with transplanting. So that's why a lot of people tend to directly sow them outdoors. But hey, I break rules. I've seen some other gardeners start them indoors as well. And so I decided to try it out myself this year. So I'm also sowing beets. Again, it's a cool weather vegetable. So in addition to your herbs, you can also put your cool weather vegetables, your perennial herbs and your cool weather herbs outside in an unheated greenhouse, in addition to your cool weather vegetables like your brassicas, your onions, and what else am I forgetting? Arugula, chard, and beets. So something to consider is to plant those outdoors. Now, I talked about what you can start indoors and prep for your spring garden, but what can you do outdoors? Because you can do some things outdoors. And as much as I hate doing this, or I don't want to say hate doing it, I'm just not like, you know, I like to see my stuff indoors grow. When you plant stuff outdoors, you can't really see it, but you can start seeds outdoors as well. And the different things you can start outdoors around this time in February are your snap peas. Peas are a cooler vegetable that you can grow outdoors. So I've actually sowed my sugar snap peas and also my sweet peas outdoors in a cute little planter that I can't wait to see how it grows. But I planted those outdoors because they will be able to take this cooler weather. They might not germinate yet until it starts to get a little bit warmer, but when they do germinate, and if we were to have shifted to some cold snaps later on in the spring, they will be just fine. The pods might not be good, but the actual plant will survive the cooler temperature. So that's why I planted those outdoors. But in addition to this, I've also sowed some of my cool weather vegetable seeds in little containers outdoors as winter seed sowing. Now, winter seed sowing is a little cool trick. If you don't have space indoors or don't feel like dealing with all the grow lights and the heat mats, you can actually start your seeds outdoors and create a little mini greenhouse effect by sowing them in little containers that are clear, they have drainage, and it's also sustainable because you're reusing something that you use from the grocery store, like these little strawberry or fruit containers that we have. So I basically sowed my lettuce and spinach and even, I believe, some of my onions just to do an experiment to see how long they would actually take to germinate. But I put all of these in my containers outdoors, and actually my iceberg lettuce has already sprouted. Y'all, it has been so cold outside, and I don't know if that's why it's called iceberg lettuce, but it is sprouted in those little containers and it's still alive. So you can actually start some seeds outdoors in little containers, and these little humidity domes actually allow some heat in them to help keep the seeds and seedlings warm when they do germinate. So something else to consider as well. The next thing you can do indoors in February is to wake up your tuber plants, your tuber flowers, anything that is like a flower that, you know, it doesn't really have a seed. I don't know if that's correct, but y'all correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. But like your tubers, like dahlias, I actually started my dahlias, woke them up indoors this year, because last year when I planted them in containers, they just took so long to harvest. I don't say harvest, long to get to a mature size. Actually, I don't even think that I got blooms from my dahlias last year, maybe like one bloom, and that was like late in the season. But I started to wake them up indoors by putting them in some soil and just basically just let them just chill for a little bit under some grow lights, and they're happy. And so that by the time we get past our last frost and it's warm enough to put dahlias outside, there'll already be like larger plants so that they'll be able to bloom sooner than the dahlias that I started last year by just putting the tubers outdoors when it got warm. So that's just something else you want to also keep in mind that you can start as well in February. So the next thing that you can do indoors in February is to start your ginger and turmeric rhizomes. So I actually started these in January and they actually took off very fast. I have a video, one of my shorts that is on my page, where I walk you through how to get your ginger to sprout within like 10 days using onion. So I got mine to actually sprout within 10 days, and now this is what they look like. I started them January 5th and we're now in mid-February. So the thing about ginger and turmeric is that they take about 9 to 10 months to grow. And for those that live in cooler temperatures or colder zones, you need to start them indoors so that you can get them the full 9 to 10 months of growing in the season. And so, you know, this is the way I started them indoors, and they're sitting under some grow lights, and I'm not really doing much to them, not really watering them as much. They're just fine. I keep them moist whenever the soil does dry up though. But yeah, you can start your ginger and turmeric indoors and get a head start so that you can harvest them around the fall before you get that first frost, so that you have the full 9 to 10 months of growing. So just another thing to keep in mind of what you can start in February. The next thing you can start are sweet potato slips. Now, I had such a big harvest of sweet potatoes last year that I was like, I gotta grow them again this year. So that's exactly what I'm doing, but I'm doing them different this year. Instead of growing them from seed potatoes, which I did last year, I'm trying an experiment where I'm trying to be a little more sustainable, but by growing them in by using a grocery store sweet potato. So I have another shorts video that you can check out. It's a little shorter than long form content, but I walk you through how to get sweet potato slips from one grocery store sweet potato. Now, the thing about doing this is that grocery store sweet potatoes aren't usually ideal for growing because depending on where you get them from, now if they're not organic, that's definitely what you don't want to do. But if they're organic, you know, you could start your own sweet potato slips from an organic sweet potato. Once they sprout, they have these little shoots on them called slips, and you can just pull them off, put them in some water or put them in some soil, and they'll continue to root and create some sweet potato slips. The downside of doing this is that you don't know what kind of conditions those sweet potatoes grew in. You don't know the variety most of the time when you're buying it from the grocery store. But by not knowing the conditions it grew in, you might introduce different diseases into your soil. So one way to combat this is by soaking that sweet potato in some hydrogen peroxide just to kill off any bacteria, whatever, microbes, that bad microbes and good microbes in as well. But you kill all the microbes on it and then rinse it off. And then you continue the process to get the slips forming from them. The other way too is when you do get the slips and you're still not, too confident about them, not introducing any disease in your soil, you can plant them in a container so you can contain the soil that you're growing them in case there are any diseases that happen to come from that. But starting your sweet potato slips indoors is another thing you can do. Sweet potatoes take a long time. I don't want to say they take a long time because I started mine pretty late, so I can't really say they take a long time, but it's good to start them right now. If you have a sweet potato just sitting in your pantry that has sprouted and you don't want to throw it away or waste it, get the little shoots, the slips, and replant them in some water and then grow some more sweet potatoes from that. So that's another idea as well for what you can start in February. And last but not least, you can start your warm weather vegetables, some of them, indoors based on your last frost date and what is able to be started based on, I like to use the Old Farmer's Almanac to see what the planting calendar is and when I can start indoors, outdoors, and transplant. But based on that and just knowing how things grow from previous years, I'm starting my tomatoes, my tomatillos, and my eggplant indoors in February. Now, I will probably have to continue to pot them up as a fast growers, but I have the space indoors to be able to maintain the size of these plants. But as far as warm weather seeds, now I'm going to do probably deep dive into this in a future video. But last year was so crazy with all that unseasonably warm temperature that I had to go and problem solve and research what can I do differently this year in prep for the extreme heat if we have that again this year. And basically, I'm looking at growing different varieties of my warm weather plants. I'm not just growing one variety like I did last year. That's where I'm a big no-no. Not doing that again. But I will be looking into growing different varieties of seeds based on how they grow and how they can sustain heat and humidity, disease resistance, if they grow quickly, be like early maturing varieties, if they need pollination, because sometimes the heat can interfere with the pollination of your vegetables and fruits. So all those different things, I'm going to do some research and look into not just buying my heirloom varieties, which are open pollinated and you can grow them and save the seeds year to year, but I'm also going to look into growing some hybrid varieties, not GMO, that's not the same thing. Hybrid varieties are basically cross-pollination between two different varieties. So I'm going to do some more research on that. I'm going to provide some more information about it. But just know that this time of year is a great time to start looking at seed catalogs and looking at the varieties that they're selling. Because a lot of times when we get our seeds from the stores, the big box stores or the grocery stores, they sell only certain type of varieties, right? And that's usually what I used to buy. I'm like, okay, they got this right here. That grows fine in my zone. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it doesn't. And a lot of times you might need to find something that grows well in your zone because a lot of that is just generic, like what they think grows in everybody's zone. When it will grow. Don't get me wrong, it'll grow, but will it thrive? So I'm not just gonna, rely on just the seeds that are available to me in the stores, but I'm doing some research on the different varieties that are sold, the companies that they're coming from, how they produce them. Yeah, you guys, this is like a year of just trying to make sure I time things right. But again, it's not going to be perfect, but I did learn a lot of lessons last year, and in hopes of hopefully being able to grow more, produce more during the summertime than I did last summer, because last year was just, it was ghetto. It was ghetto, I ain't gonna lie. So, but I will be sharing a video, and actually I'm trying to prepare some digital information as well that you can download for how to start seeds and what type of seeds to look into buying for your garden if you want to grow year round in those conditions like how we had last summer with the unseasonably hot temperature. So yeah, guys, I plan to be sharing more content coming soon. I've just been so late to just share this year, so much going on. But what I do plan to share in the future, of course, is some information about the different varieties that you can grow or look into growing so that you can have thriving vegetables over the summer. I'm also in the process of redesigning my garden this summer, because I just realized, I am an urban gardener. I am, an advocate for being creative with the space that you have to grow what you love. And that's just what I'm going to do this year. So I have some really cool ideas in store for you guys that hopefully will help to inspire you for ways that you can grow things in small and tight confined places. Because again, you can grow anything. You just got to get creative with how you grow it. So it's always a pleasure to share all these different things with you guys, and I hope that y'all are having a great start to your year. If not, I'm sending positive vibes. I'm sending just calm energy. We're gonna get through all this, you guys. And as always, our garden is here to help nurture our lives, our spirits, and that's just what my garden is doing for me right now. So until next time, happy gardening.